Thank you very much, Musa. Few years ago, the Israeli bulldozer destroyed the home of Fawzia al-Kurd, homeless and sitting in a tent provided by the Red Cross, together with her sick, paralyzed husband. Visited by the brave journalist, Israeli journalist Gideon Levy, he asked her, Fawzia, how do you feel? She said, close your eyes, Gideon. What do you see? He said, darkness. She said, this is exactly what I see since my home got demolished. And this words, simple words, precisely describes my feeling since June 12th. Only darkness. As a mother and as a human being, today I stand and I say I am angry and I am sad and I'm disturbed and I'm shattered. Time and again, Palestine is under attack. Time and again, Gaza being bombarded and hit by the F-16 American-made war plane. This also, or this feeling of, living in darkness, exactly describe how each Palestinian in the occupied territories feel. How many times more I need to stand in this place in Churchill or in Canada or in Europe or North America to protest against the crimes committed by the only settler colonial state in the 21st century. Time and again I protest against the same massacres, the same criminals, and unfortunately the same victims and the same stands on behalf of the international community, the same pale and shallow words, the silence, utter silence. I called, or as this time of writing this text, Israel warplanes have killed 31 Palestinian people and injured over 128 people, with the troops massing on the borders of Gaza at this moment. I called my family this morning, this afternoon, and this evening as well, to know that Gaza has become a ghost town. Dark smoke, suffocated air, fear and darkness, bombs. The home of my neighbor from Kawara family has been bombed by F-16 and 8 people have been killed. All the family members, including the children aged 10 and 13. What do we call this? This is a crime against humanity. This is illegal. This is violation of the right of law, and this is against international law and the right of life. But this has been the case over the past 6 decades. Israel has been killing and shelling, executing and targeting our civilians, our leaders, for the mere reason of being Palestinians. I spoke with my friend Abir, who said that her 3 kids aged between 4 and 7 years are back to diapers now as a result of the fear. My ill grandmother, 88 years old, she asked my uncle this morning not to bury her in cemetery, but to dig a hole under the mulberry tree in our home in Khan Yunis refugee camp and bury her, because it's not safe anymore to go to cemetery or do a funeral in Gaza. My cousin Marwa was breastfeeding her son when the F-16 dropped a bomb in a nearby home that shattered all the glasses of the windows on her while she's feeding her son. In darkness, she ran barefoot to the street while blood covering all her body, and her 9 years a 9-month infant. He's still in hospital. The story of current violence did not start on June 12, as the media portrays, when the Israeli illegal settlers went missing. But it starts with the victims' pain that is decades age. Palestinian pain with their killed children that goes unnoticed day after day. It starts with the victims who never have names or features. It starts with the daily violence of Israeli occupation. Let's went back to May 15, 2014, a couple of months from now, when Nadim Siam Nuwara, 17 years old, and Muhammad Ouda, 16, who were killed by Israeli snipers on Nakba Day. Did we go to bomb the Israeli homes? Did we invade their lands and space in revenge? Did we impose curfews and blockade? Again, the story did not start on June 12, 2014, when the three illegal settlers went missing. Again, I say illegal because, as Basil mentioned, and as well as Fatiya, it's illegal to use the occupied land for the profit of the occupier. It's illegal to transfer your population into an occupied land. This is why, if they have been murdered, it's the responsibility of the Israeli government. That said, we condemn each murder from both sides. It did not end either by murdering over 20 Palestinian in West Bank and Gaza, including children and youth, and wounding hundreds of innocent civilians. It did not end either with the destruction of Palestinian homes, including, imagine, homes of suspects of murders. It has never happened in history that a Supreme Court of a state that called itself democracy endorsed demolition of a suspect home before conviction. Shame on them and shame on their legal system. The story of Israeli state terror and settler violence did not end with the mass arrest in West Bank. Over 600 people, including all of those political prisoners who have been released in 2012 exchange, including most of our members of parliaments. It did not end with the raids, attacks, invasions, and closures that Palestinians are being subjected to until this moment. It did not end with the destruction of Hebron factories that worth millions of dollars. Mistaken who would think that this is a response to a crime of killing of 3 settlers. No, this is policy, systematic policy that aims to depopulate Palestine of its indigenous people, a plan that aims to kill the human impulse inside us, the Palestinian. The settler violence and crimes has always been there. They are the ugly, permanent features of Israeli occupation. The number of Israeli illegal settlers, the murder actually, of the Israeli settlers was a mere justification to launch this campaign of both state and settler terror. Instead of calling for calm at a time as critical as the day the bodies of the Israeli settlers found, Mr. Prime Minister Netanyahu quoted saying, "Vengeance for the blood of a small child." Economy Minister said, "Murderers, quote unquote, of children and those who direct them cannot be forgiven." Now it's time for action, not words. Foreign Minister Lieberman used the clashes on the street of Israeli next city to say that Palestinian citizens of Israel, and this is what Basil was talking about a minute ago, about what does it mean apartheid, when he said, "I want to send a clear message that, quote unquote, the place of these people is not Israel." We cannot, of course, be surprised if these words are heard as endorsement by the hate mobs on the streets. And the crime of killing Mohammed Abu Khdeir, aged 16, and burning him alive was only one example. Imagine Edmonton being subjected to the same collective punishment imposed by Israel on the occupied territory over 24 days. Imagine that your 16 years old son being abducted while sitting on his doorsteps, then brutally beaten and burned alive, like Mohammed Abu Khder, aged 16 years old. Imagine the Edmontonian police, the RCMP, receives the videotape that shows the images of the criminals and waits days to react and arrest them. Imagine after all this horror that your other son who's still mourning the loss of his cousin, being abducted by your own police, again, who's supposed to protect you and protect the order of Edmonton. Imagine him beaten, hit, tortured till he goes unconscious, then abducted to an unknown place like the American Palestinian Tariq Abu Khder, the cousin of the martyr Muhammad. Imagine being under curfew for days, unable to get to work or to school or even to hospital, while occupation army is conducting home-to-home search, not for the sake of finding settlers, because they already found them, but to destroy, to revenge, to kill, to steal, and to spread terror. This was the case in West Bank over the past 3 weeks. Gaza is another story though, as if the inhumane blockade and closure of the borders and sanctions is not enough. We're not enough. The Israeli army has subjected the Strip to ongoing F-16 Apache drone bombardment to one of the most populated areas in the world. Yesterday, the tiny place has been shelled, bombarded by hundreds of rockets, and the death toll, as I mentioned earlier, stands 31 people, mostly civilians, innocent, and over 130 people wounded. Shame on the world leaders. Together with Harper government, the Canadian government that stands and supports the occupiers. Shame on the governments that support a fascist regime that kills innocent children and slaughter a nation. This government does not represent us, do they? No! We gather today to reflect the true face of Canada. Canada that I belong to, and Canada that you belong to. The peace-loving country. This is Canada that we know. We gather this evening to demand a stand that represents the majority of Canadians. We reject state terror. We reject it. We need your voice. We need your voice. And we want to send a clear message tonight on behalf of all the voiceless people. Today we need to write to our Member of Parliament, please, to tell them, stop the attack on Palestine. Gaza is under attack. This is not fair. It ought to stop. It has to stop. And it should stop now. Our rally today is part of dozens of protests that being organized in cities around the world to respond to the ongoing assault on Palestine and Palestinian people. Our rally today sends Palestinians a very clear message that we hear you. We hear your anguish and your suffering. This rally is support for the holy city of Jerusalem and its people. It's support for the Jesus Christ city, Bethlehem, and its people. It's support for Hebron and Gaza, who are under attack, together with their children. We stand today to say that we are angry and we need to act on this anger. We stand to send a message that Canadian people, Edmontonian, free people are against Israeli crimes, against Israeli occupation, against colonization of Palestinian land, against the killing of children and civilians. We need to stand firm for justice. And we need to act. Thank you very much for coming to this rally. And Viva Palestina!